I never expected my son-in-law to show up at my door on a rainy afternoon, asking if we could talk alone. What he revealed changed the way I saw him, and myself, forever. Before we begin, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories like this, please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. It really helps us reach more people. The rain had been tapping at my kitchen window all morning, soft at first, then insistent, as though it wanted to be let inside. I was standing over the sink, rinsing a handful of blueberries, when I saw a familiar car slow to a stop near my driveway. At first, I thought maybe my daughter had forgotten something, but when the door opened and my son-in-law stepped out alone, shoulders hunched against the weather, I felt something shift in my chest. He never came by without calling. Not once in the 12 years he'd been part of our family. I dried my hands on a dish towel, watching him through the curtain as he hurried toward the porch, shaking droplets from his hair. The look on his face wasn't troubled exactly, but thoughtful, the kind of expression people wear when they're holding something heavy inside. A moment later came the knock, gentle, almost hesitant. When I opened the door, he offered me a soft smile, his voice calm but unusually quiet. He said my name the way someone does when they has been rehearsing it in their mind. I stepped aside to let him in, noticing how he paused first, as though asking permission with his eyes before crossing the threshold. That small gesture told me more than words ever could. Whatever he wanted to talk about mattered deeply to him. He stood in the hallway for a moment, brushing water from his sleeves, glancing around like he was searching for the right place to begin. I motioned him toward the kitchen, where the warm light softened the room into something comforting. I liked my home that way, calm, lived in, quietly waiting. We sat down at the table, the rain a gentle rhythm behind us. He wrapped his hands around the mug I offered him, though he hadn't taken a sip. The steam rose between us, blurring his expression whenever he looked down. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," he said, eyes finally meeting mine. "You're never interrupting," I told him, and I meant it. Despite the complicated layers that families often carry, he had always been steady, respectful, and patient. I admired that about him more than I ever said out loud. Still, I could feel a tension in the air, subtle, like the moment before lightning brightens a gray sky. He drew a breath and let it out slowly. I needed to talk to someone who would understand, someone who sees people clearly. I blinked at that. I wasn't sure when he had decided I was someone he trusted so deeply, but the realization settled over me like a warm blanket. I nodded gently, encouraging him to continue. He spoke about feeling overwhelmed lately, not with my daughter, he made that clear right away, but with life, expectations, responsibilities. The way age creeps in and changes the shape of things you once thought were solid. He said he didn't want advice. He just needed to say things out loud to someone who wouldn't judge him. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. It had been years since anyone had confided in me with that much openness. Ever since my divorce, I'd grown used to carrying conversations where I was the listener but never the one truly seeing. Something softened between us, not in a way that crossed any line, but in the way two people recognized their shared humanity. As he talked, I found myself studying the way he held his worries, tucked neatly behind each sentence. I noticed the small tremor in his fingers when he finally lifted the mug to take a sip. I saw how grateful he looked when I offered even a simple nod of understanding. The kitchen felt warmer than usual, the air filled with that unmistakable sense that a deeper connection was taking root. Not romantic, not improper, just unexpectedly meaningful. Like discovering a hidden room in a house you've lived in for decades. At one point, he paused, swallowed hard, and said quietly, "There's something else. Something I've been afraid to say." The rain seemed to stop for a moment, or maybe I just stopped hearing it. I leaned forward slightly, my voice low, steady. "You can tell me. whatever it is. What he said next would begin a series of moments I never saw coming, the start of a journey that would challenge old assumptions, bring hidden feelings to the surface, and teach me more about myself than I expected at my age. But that revelation, that comes next. He sat there for a long moment, hands clasped, eyes lowered, as if the words he wanted to release were sitting somewhere deep, reluctant to rise. I waited quietly. At my age, I'd learned that silence can be a gentle invitation. You don't rush people when their hearts are full. Finally, he lifted his gaze, and there was a sincerity there that stirred something warm and protective inside me. "I've been feeling alone," he said softly, "even when I'm surrounded by people, and it scares me." I didn't expect that. He was the steady one in the family, the one who smiled through difficult dinners and patiently listened when conversations became tangled. To hear him confess something so vulnerable made me see him in a new light, not as the man who married my daughter, but as a person with an inner world I had never glimpsed. He went on, choosing his words with care, explaining how the last few years had worn on him. Work demands, family obligations, the quiet pressure of feeling responsible for everyone's peace except his own. He said he admired how I handled things, how I seemed to move through the world with calm strength, even when life wasn't gentle. I tried to laugh it off, but he shook his head. "No," he said, "you don't realize it, but you make people feel understood. That's why I'm here." The words settled into me like embers, warm, unexpected, and stirring feelings I hadn't invited. Not improper feelings, but a deep recognition that someone saw me in a way I hadn't felt seen in years. He took a breath, steadying himself. "I didn't want to bother you, but I kept thinking about how you always listen without making anyone feel small. I needed that." I reached across the table slightly, not touching him, only narrowing the space between us in a gesture of reassurance. "You're allowed to feel what you feel," I said, "and you're allowed to be honest about it." For a moment, his shoulders dropped, the tension dissolving like sugar in warm water. He sighed, almost relieved. The house felt different, quieter, heavier, but in a comforting way. The kind of quiet where important conversations find room to unfold. Outside, the rain had slowed to a faint drizzle, the kind that leaves tiny beads on the window like scattered pearls. He rubbed the back of his neck, the way people do when they're trying to steady themselves. "There's more," he continued, "something I've been struggling to say because I don't want it to come out the wrong way." I felt my pulse shift, not from fear, but anticipation. I told him to take his time. "It's just," he hesitated, "I admire you in ways I don't know how to talk about. Not in a disrespectful way. I just feel connected to you. Like you understand parts of me I didn't even know needed understanding." I took in his words carefully, hearing not a boundary-crossing confession, but a heartfelt expression of emotional trust. Still, I could see how nervous he was, worried he had said too much or revealed something that might be misinterpreted. I offered a slow nod. "It's okay to feel connected to people who listen. That doesn't make anything wrong. It just means you're human." He blinked, relief softening the sharpness in his expression. "I didn't want you to think I was crossing any line." "You haven't," I assured him. "You're speaking honestly. I respect that." For a while, we simply sat there, letting the quiet settle again. I noticed the delicate hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, the gentle scent of the lemon candle I had forgotten I lit earlier. Everything felt steady, grounded, almost like the house itself was leaning in to listen. He finally sipped his tea, the steam brushing his face. "It feels strange," he said, "to open up like this. I didn't expect it to be this hard, or this comforting. It's been a long time since someone trusted me like this," I admitted. "It means something to me, too." The confession surprised even me. After my divorce, I had built a life that was peaceful but quiet, filled with routine and polite conversations that never reached very deep. To have someone, especially someone I already cared about in a family sense, speak to me with such emotional honesty stirred a part of myself I had almost forgotten existed. A part that longed to be needed. A part that longed to matter. He looked around the kitchen, as though seeing it differently now. "Being here, it feels safe," he said. I smiled softly. That's what a home should feel like. He leaned back in his chair, drawing another slow breath. I didn't realize how much I needed this. For the first time since he'd arrived, he relaxed fully, shoulders lowered, voice calmer. The storm inside him had eased, even if only for a moment. But just as I thought the conversation was winding down, he glanced toward the living room, then back at me with a thoughtful, almost hesitant expression. "There's something else I want to tell you," he said quietly. "Something even more personal." And once again, I felt the air shift. Not with danger, not with anything inappropriate, but with the weight of words that had been held inside too long. What he revealed next would take us both deeper into a journey neither of us had expected. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He glanced toward the window as if gathering courage from the soft gray light drifting through the rain clouds. I could tell he wasn't searching for the right words. He was searching for the strength to release them. His fingers tapped the side of his mug once, twice, then stilled. When he finally looked at me, there was something new in his eyes. Not fear exactly, but a kind of gentle vulnerability that made me sit a little straighter, prepared to receive whatever weight he was carrying. "What I'm about to say, it's something I haven't told anyone," he began, voice quiet, steadying itself piece by piece. "Not even your daughter." The words landed with a soft thud in my chest. I didn't react outwardly. I just nodded, letting him know he had space to continue without judgment. He exhaled and leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees. "I feel like I've lost a part of myself, and I don't know how to get it back." The rain, still faint but persistent, created a gentle backdrop as he spoke. His expression held a mixture of sadness and determination, like he was finally confronting something he'd avoided for too long. "You know," he said, "when you get older, people assume you've got everything figured out, that you're stable, settled, confident. But the truth is, I feel more unsure now than I did in my 20s. I felt a tug of recognition inside me. I had lived long enough to know exactly what he meant, that strange, quiet confusion that comes with age, when life shifts beneath your feet and you don't quite know who you're becoming." He continued, "Work has become overwhelming. I feel like I'm expected to hold everything together. And at home, I don't want to burden anyone with how I feel." His voice trembled slightly, but not from weakness, from honesty. "I'm tired of pretending," he said, "tired of being the strong one all the time." I nodded, offering a warm look of understanding. "Strength isn't about holding everything inside," I said. "Sometimes it's simply telling the truth." He swallowed, a small sigh escaping him. "That's why I came here. I knew you'd understand. I knew you wouldn't make me feel foolish." My heart softened even more. It had been years since someone had trusted me in this way, not with secrets that caused conflict, but with the quiet truths that shape a person's inner world. I leaned back in my chair, giving him space while staying fully present. "I'm glad you came," I said. "You deserve a place where you don't have to pretend." He smiled faintly, the tension in his face easing. "You've always had this way of listening. It makes things feel manageable." There was a pause, gentle, reflective. The kind of pause that happens when two people find themselves unexpectedly aligned in their understanding of life's complexities. Then he said, almost in a whisper, "But there's something else. Something deeper than stress or responsibility." I felt the air shift again. Not sharply, but quietly, like a curtain slowly being drawn aside. He looked directly at me, not with intensity but with sincerity. "I've been feeling disconnected from myself," he said, "from who I used to be, and when I'm around you, I remember that part of myself." My breath caught slightly, not from alarm, not from anything inappropriate, but from the unexpected tenderness of his admission. "I don't mean anything improper," he added quickly, lifting his hands slightly. "I'm not crossing any lines. I just feel understood in a way I haven't felt in a long time." I let out a slow breath, touched by the honesty and relieved by the respect woven into his tone. "I understand," I replied. "Sometimes we connect with people who reflect parts of us we've forgotten. It doesn't make anything wrong. It means we're still growing." He looked down, a soft smile forming. "That's exactly what it feels like I'm growing again." A warmth spread through the room, subtle but unmistakable. Not romantic warmth, but human warmth, the kind that forms between two people who recognize themselves in each other. He straightened, gathering his courage once more. "I want to make changes," he said. "Real ones, but I don't know where to start." "You start," I said gently, "by not trying to do it alone." He looked at me with quiet gratitude, and I felt something inside me expand, a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. "Would you," he began, then hesitated, "would you be willing to talk with me sometimes? Like this? Not about heavy things always, but just talk. I feel grounded when I'm here." His voice carried no expectation, no hidden intentions. Just a simple request for connection, for guidance, for a shared space where he could breathe. I took a moment before answering, wanting to choose my words carefully. "Yes," I said finally. "If it helps you, I'm here." The relief on his face was unmistakable. "Thank you," he whispered. For a while, neither of us spoke. The rain had lightened to a misty drizzle, casting a silver glow through the kitchen windows. The world felt softer, more forgiving. Eventually, he leaned back in his chair, the heaviness in him noticeably lighter. "There's one more thing I want to say," he added, voice softer now. I looked at him, waiting. "It means something to me," he said, "that you didn't push me away, that you made room for this." I smiled gently. "We all need someone to make room for us." His expression shifted, thoughtful, grateful, and quietly transformed. But even as he relaxed, something told me there was still more he needed to express, something that would bring us to an even deeper understanding. And that moment would unfold next. He sat quietly for a moment, the kind of quiet that stretches not from hesitation, but from gathering one final piece of truth. The steam from his forgotten mug had faded, leaving the tea lukewarm, but neither of us seemed concerned with it now. Something else filled the space between us, something steady, sincere, and unmistakably human. When he finally lifted his gaze, there was no trembling in it, only clarity. "I came here today because I didn't want to let another year go by without being honest about what I'm going through," he said. "And because I realized I needed guidance from someone who understands life in a way I don't yet." His words touched me deeply. At my age, people don't often look to you for guidance anymore. They assume you've had your moments, lived your stories, and should now simply watch from the sidelines. But here he was, telling me that my experiences, even the ones I had quietly tucked away, still mattered. He took a quiet breath. "You've been through so much more life than I have, and you still carry yourself with calmness and purpose. I want to learn from that." I felt a warmth in my chest, the kind that so rarely visits once the busy years of motherhood, marriage, and routine have settled behind you. "You don't give yourself enough credit," I said. "You're stronger than you realize." He shook his head gently. "Maybe, but it helps to talk to someone who sees who I'm trying to become, not just who I'm expected to be." Those words lingered between us. I wasn't just a listener to him anymore. I had become a mirror reflecting the parts of himself he was searching for. Outside, the drizzle softened into a drifting mist. The clouds lightened, allowing pieces of pale sky to filter through, casting a faint glow across the kitchen. It felt symbolic somehow, a quiet opening, a shift toward clarity. He leaned back slowly, letting his shoulders rest against the chair. "I've been thinking about who I want to be in the next 10-20 years, he said, "and I don't want to become someone who grows distant from himself." "You won't," I replied, "not if you stay honest like this." He offered a small smile, thoughtful and warm. "Talking with you today, it reminded me of something I forgot. That life doesn't stop teaching us when we reach a certain age, and it doesn't stop surprising us either." I couldn't help but smile back. That's the truth. Life still has lessons waiting, even when we think we've lived through everything. He paused, then spoke with a kind of soft reverence. "You know, I didn't expect this conversation to change anything. But it did. Not in a dramatic way, just inside. I feel lighter and clearer." His sincerity touched me more than I expected. I had spent years feeling invisible, quietly moving through routines, filling roles without being fully seen. And here he was, seeing me. Not as a mother, not as an ex-wife, not as a background figure in someone else's life, but as a person who still had something meaningful to offer. "I'm glad you feel that way," I said softly. "You deserve clarity, and you deserve peace." He nodded, his eyes warm and steady. "I'd also want to make sure you know how much I respect you. I didn't come here to say anything that crossed a line. I just wanted to be honest with someone who makes me feel grounded." "I know," I said gently, "and I'd appreciate your respect." There was a sense of mutual understanding then, a quiet agreement that whatever was shared here was built on trust, not tension, understanding, not confusion. He looked around my kitchen again, his expression softer now, almost nostalgic. "This house, it feels like a place where people can breathe. I didn't realize how much I needed that today." "You're welcome here anytime," I told him. "As long as you come with honesty and respect, the door is open." His face relaxed into a genuine smile. "I will. And thank you. Truly." A silence followed, but it wasn't